This is Entrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart. With your host, Terri Levine. Listen every week as Terri tackles the topics that will help you become a successful heart-centered entrepreneur. Be sure to read the blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog. Come back often and add this show to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. And now here's Terri.
Welcome to the Heartrepreneur Radio and TV show with Terri Levine. I'm your co-host, Velma Gallant, and I'm excited to be here today. You can connect with Terri, me, and other like-minded, heart-based business owners in the Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine Facebook group. Be sure to go check it out. And if you like this show and have an opportunity to listen to the rest of our shows, we absolutely love those 5-star reviews, and be sure to like the show. Today's quote is, "I have a confidence about my life that comes from standing tall on my own 2 feet." Jane Fonda. Today's guest is Suzanne Tulien. Suzanne is a brand clarity expert, author, and speaker. She helps her clients get more conscious, strategic, and deliberate in how they identify, define, and align to their unique value position. She does this through her proven brand DNA methodology, coupled with coaching support that uncovers powerful, authentic attributes that can be realized in your actions and behaviors to transform your experience and help you become what you want to be known for. Welcome to the show, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, Velma. I'm so glad to be here.
So our show topic, we're actually kind of basing it on your book, Personal Brand Clarity, Identify, Define, and Align to What You Want to Be Known For. And I kind of think it really fits with the quote that I picked today about standing tall on our own 2 feet. I really think that is a huge part of our brand, is that confidence.
It really is. And confidence comes from clarity. And that's what the process is really about, is getting the clarity and your own power and realize who you really are so you can bring that forth in your actions and behaviors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some of the things, and actually before we get started with that, can you talk a little bit about you and kind of how you got into this work?
Yeah, so I have been in the communications, advertising, marketing field for years. That was including graphic design. That was kind of the interest that I had in my degree in communications, public relations even. And I set out to really help people disseminate information about their businesses, about their brands, about who they were, and get it all out there. And I realized when I went out on my own after I left corporate America, I started my own company, that in the design arena, all I was actually doing, this is what I call my big BFO, which is the blinding flash of the obvious with my clients, was I was presenting them with some logo designs because I had focused on that as my craft in terms of my design studio work. Mm-hmm. And helping them create that corporate identity, look and feel. But as I was presenting them those images, they were actually seeing what they could become through the sophistication of the images, maybe the more contemporary look of the images than they currently were. And so they were realizing that they were hesitant about stepping into that look and feel and not be able to live up to that level of sophistication that they looked like in their logo. So I was realizing what I was actually doing was putting lipstick on the pig, so to speak. Okay. Think about it, that they weren't ready to step into that higher level or that expectation that just a visual image might give them. And I started stepping back from designing and thought, well, if you're not ready for that, let's get you ready. Let's get you stepping into that by clarifying what you're actually offering. And that's actually the definition of branding versus marketing, which I think is something your audiences should really be able to understand.
Well, and I think that's an important distinction. It sounds to me like, first of all, one of the things that I heard is that you were actually seeing the full potential of your clients and putting it out there in those designs. And of course, that's triggering them to be, oh my God, am I really all that?
And the only way I was able to see it is because I had a pretty detailed intake as a designer at the time to pull this information out of them at the time. But they had never really thought through these answers to these questions that I was asking them until that moment in time. And they've never put that information that they gave me into practice. And so they weren't making it tangible. So I saw the gap.
Totally.
Right? And I thought that I cannot continue to deliver putting this lipstick on the pig until I help them flush that information out and enable them to step into who they're saying they are so that they can live it fully.
Standing tall on their own 2 feet.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. That is awesome. That is really awesome. And what I'm also hearing is that the branding is kind of like foundation work. It's the foundation that you put your marketing on.
Yes.
Would that be correct?
I'll define it for you. And, and it's really just refining what you're saying. And so the easiest way when I'm speaking, I tell my audiences, so you market a brand. So you're out there marketing that verb, that dissemination of and communicating of the brand, but you have not yet defined and aligned to your brand in a formal way. So what are you marketing?
Really, they end up marketing only a portion of what they really, of their full potential. And if you're only,
go ahead.
And if you're only marketing a portion of your full potential, you're only supporting a portion of you're only impacting a portion of what you really could be impacting.
That is so true. You're only marketing what you think you're offering in terms of the product or service versus the brand, which is the being part, the how you go about delivering what you deliver, right?
Oh, I like that. The brand is the being. I love that. That is really awesome. That is really awesome.
And so when you go about marketing something that you have not yet defined, you're in a position of vulnerability. And that means that you're chasing what you think the client wants versus, and that's assertion, right? You're pushing it out there versus attraction, knowing what you offer and offering it. And then attracting.
Right. That makes a lot of sense as well. So tell me a little bit about your brand DNA methodology.
So I built this with a colleague of mine. We were partners at the time in 2004 when we started the business called Brand Ascension. That was my consulting firm. And we decided that we saw that gap and we wanted to help these companies, solopreneurs or companies with employees, really go inward and identify and define their brand. So this methodology, we researched all these great companies and why are they so great? Why are they able to do what they do at the level that they're doing it? Well, it was because of clarity and that they were able to go in and flesh out those attributes that made them who they were authentically. They're not trying to be anybody else. But they fleshed them out and they named it. They identified, defined, and then they began to align to it. And so we created this methodology that helped companies do that step by step so that it was a process really of becoming. That's great. A process of becoming, because branding is a process of assigning meaning to something. When you're doing it, and you're fully conscious of it, you're in control of it.
Right. Well, and I noticed too, over the years of connecting with a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff like that, that you can, when you have that clarity, like you said, there's that level of confidence. And I know there've been times in my own career, in my own entrepreneurial escapades, that there was confidence, and there was moments, and often moments where I didn't have that confidence. It was like, I think this is what I think this is what I'm doing. I think this is what I need to be doing. I think this is what I can offer, rather than I know this is what I have to offer.
Huge difference there, isn't it? In how you feel, right? That whole visceral sense of the knowing versus the thinking or guessing or anticipating.
Or hoping, right? Really.
Right.
I hope I'm making a difference. My intention is to make a difference, versus this is what I do that makes a difference. And these are the people that I make a difference for.
Exactly. So when we don't really understand that about who we are, about ourselves, and we're not stepping into it at that conscious, strategic, and deliberate level, then again, that word vulnerability comes back up, because we are vulnerable to be chameleons to whatever is in our external environment. And then we become that which is inauthentic to who we are. A lot of solopreneurs or entrepreneurs will do this when they're out networking and they're trying to fit in or fit into a certain genre, a certain group, a certain whatever that is, because they're not strong enough and confident and clear enough about who they are.
Well, and so Terri speaks a lot about going really narrow with your niche, right? And so that's kind of what I'm hearing too, is the same thing. If you're not narrow and clear on what it is that you're doing, you're trying to appeal to too many people, too many things, and you can get caught in that and stop actually being what you really have to offer.
I call that diluting the brand.
Makes sense.
Because you're trying to be everything to everyone, and no brand is universal. That shows up in my 6 Myths of Small Business Branding ebook. And that's one of the polls with an entrepreneur sometimes when they're not seasoned and they're new, is they get pulled into so many different directions because they think there's a market there. And they haven't defined themselves enough to say, no, that's not my market's, my brand's market. Right?
Yeah. Well, and again, it's funny because we see these parallels in all different areas. So narrow your niche, don't dilute your brand. You can't make everyone happy.
It's impossible. Not even the top 10 brands in the world are universal. They're just not. But it's super liberating to know that you're not, number one, and then go in, right, and start niching with what's actually your superpowers.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. It's I think too, what can happen if you're allowing it to be too wide is you can end up with a lot of decision fatigue, because you're trying to figure out what you're actually going to be doing for who you're actually going to be doing. And you're trying to do it for too many people. So you can just exhaust yourself.
You do. And I often talk about when you flush yourself through this process, that you start discerning differently. And you don't have to worry about all this external stuff going on, because you know you're staying in a lane you've created that you're highly conscious of. And then things start happening in more flow and ease, right? Because you're staying in that lane.
That makes a lot of sense. Terri says that a lot. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
Right.
She may have said that to me.
But like I said, it's liberating.
It is, and it's kind of like bringing a light into laser focus, right? You know, you've got your light and it's all fuzzy around the edges, but when you laser it in, then you're pinpointed, you're direct. You've got a very focused direction that you're going. It would make your life a lot easier.
Right. Well, people begin to understand what's more simple, right? A confused mind doesn't buy. So when they begin to understand you within that construct of that lane, because you're consistently showing up in that lane, so to speak, your market's filing you in their brains into a folder that is a specific thing, right? You're not all over the board and being diluted. And they're like, I don't really know what she or he does. I'm not real sure where they're an expert, right?
Right. Right.
So I always say when you market, well, marketing might get them in the door. All the things that you're doing out there to get them in the door, it's your brand that keeps them coming back.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, because again, you're getting clear on what it is that you have to offer. And if I'm clear on what it is I have to offer, I can communicate that better when I'm actually having the discussion with my potential ideal client.
Absolutely. Better, more consistently, more powerfully, in more creative ways. I mean, you're just really honing in on what that is. And I'm getting now, as a potential user of your services, I'm getting where you're the expert, and I'm relating or resonating to that in bigger ways.
So branding really is important when it comes to all levels of the marketing. So it'll be, branding is important when you're engaging with people more from a cold standpoint, yes, because they get clear and they want to take it to the next point, the next touch point where you can actually potentially engage with them. There's all of those kinds of things that it creates the opportunity for when you have a clear brand.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I want to make sure that our listeners get the opportunity to find you and connect with you. And so can you share with us what is the best way to get connected with you?
I'm all over social media. So LinkedIn is great. Facebook is perfect. My website is www.brandascension.com. And everything's on that website as well. Amazon, my brand new book, Personal Brand Clarity, is awesome. And all the other things that I've written and put up there are there.
You mentioned an ebook. Is that also available on your website?
It is.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So
I could mention that I have a Kickstarter toolkit that's a freebie for people to sign up to. And it's a toolkit of items that they get to basically dip their foot in the pool of that conscious strategic brand process. So they'll get several pieces of mine to take themselves through, including an assessment tool.
Oh, excellent. So they can actually start the process of getting clear on what their brand potentially could be, or maybe already is, and they just haven't realized it.
That's the point. Yes. It's not about making you something that you're not. It's really about helping you clarify who you already are and become more of it, so that you are very articulate in it, very confident in it, and conscious of it. And again, you start discerning differently and you realize, oh, that's not my brand, or that is my brand, or that's not my brand. And when you discern that way, you stay in that lane of power. It's really powerful.
I like that. I like that a lot, because what I'm hearing is that by claiming yourself, rather than, because I think one of the problems that could come up when you're thinking about branding is, I think I should be this, rather than this is who I am. So it's that's a thinking versus claiming. Exactly.
That's again where the vulnerability is, right? When we're unsure, we're going to waffle, right? We're going to throw stuff at anything to try to make it stick, right? We're going to get out of our lane and go after this market, or maybe my prospects want to hear this, so I'm going to try this. but it's really not about that. I mean, I work with entrepreneurs that have wasted years just chasing the client and not really ever having defined who they are as a brand. And once they do, that clarity just like explodes, and they start niching in a point of not only their products and services, but how they go about delivering what they deliver, and really beginning to resonate at a bigger way.
I really love that it matters to you for that person to be able to connect to exactly and bring out who it is that they actually are. Because I think I would imagine that not all branding experts have that level of integrity of connecting someone to who they are, rather than skipping over what the client thinks they need to be. I think it'd be really easy to agree with them and brand them in that direction, rather than going through the process of discovery for themselves.
Yeah, I never claim to brand anyone. I facilitate a process of them branding themselves. It doesn't work the other way. And we were talking about lipstick on the pig. If you're not authentic in assigning meaning to who you are, then that's all it is. You cannot sustain your authenticity in a lie. You can't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do. I very much know what you mean. And even so, I think this topic is even good for people who are in careers. And I know you're focusing on business, and that's who you actually serve. But I think when somebody looks at that, even from a career perspective, when somebody's doing up their resume, they're branding themselves. When they're doing anything, like they're doing their LinkedIn profile, whether it be from a business or career perspective, they're branding themselves. And I think it's so important what you're doing with, I love that, facilitating them actually speaking out themselves, because it's already in there, but it's speaking it out into the world.
Right. So I would almost call that, when you're disseminating that information, you are marketing it. You are in the marketing mode. When you're putting it in a social media platform, you are disseminating information. It's that inner work that you do first to identify and then define. But this third piece is align. And until you can actually walk the talk and deliver on your promise, and you're really, taking it in and realizing where in your environment you're off brand and on brand in your actions and behaviors. And until you begin to really become more conscious of that and align yourself with who you are, because if we haven't done this ever, then we're probably used to being a chameleon in our external environments. We're used to showing up as somebody else, or, in different ways, because that's the expectation of this other external environment. So instead of being so externally impacted, we become more internally driven.
I like that. So really, I could use my own brand as a filter for what I say yes and what I say no to.
Exactly. That's it. And it's strong, and it's resonating, and it's visceral, and it feels great. And it is so in flow and in alignment with who you are. That's why it's so liberating, because you feel good about making those decisions, right?
Yeah, it's like pulling your feet out of the mud and actually starting to walk on solid ground.
That's right. That's right. And you mentioned that this could be for other people other than the entrepreneur or solo professional, but I just finished a workshop for a large credit union in town, a local credit union, for their emerging leaders. I have a workshop called Elevate Your Personal Brand Leadership. And it's taking the same process, but speaking in the leader vocabulary versus the business personal brand piece. But when you define your brand, that brings up a really good point, is that even in this book, I don't just talk about the business bucket.
Mm-hmm.
It's your entire life. There are 6 buckets. You've got your family life, your community life, your financial life, your wellness and well-being
Mm-hmm.
life, your friends' life. So in all of those buckets, when you shift into stepping into more clarity about who you are, everything else changes.
Well, and that, I think that's so important, because that holistic aspect of it, because we're not just business, we're not just home, we're not just any of those things, we're not just our family, we're not just any of those things. So I think it's really valuable. I like that it really does become a filter for our yeses and our nos. And I know for myself, I'm a yes girl. My why for everything is that I want to contribute. And that has gotten me into so much trouble, because I say yes to too many things.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also, I'm not happy, and I'm not being in integrity with myself. So having another way of filtering what I say yes to and what I say no to, I think would be super valuable in moving forward in all aspects of my life.
Yes. So when we name something, we give it meaning. And if we identify and define it, we literally define those attributes that we've fleshed out about who we are, then it starts coming alive. We start being able to see it in our life, in our family, see it in our life, in our business. Because if I were to pluck Velma out of her current position in your workspace and put you into another profession, you're still Velma. You're still her, right? So you still have a brand, a personal brand that you're taking with you, because it's the essence of who you are, not in what you're doing, but who you're being.
Well, and that makes a lot of sense to me as well. One of the things that I do is I support people with finding out what their why operating system is. And that's, for me, contributing, right? And as I figured that out, and I see the same connection with what you're talking about with branding, and I looked back at my career, the positions that I was in when I was fulfilling on that why, or when I'm fulfilling my brand, I'm happy. I'm contributing. I'm happy. I'm like loving every moment of that role. And those times where I was not on the mark with that, so not fulfilling my why, not fulfilling my brand, I was miserable. So again, I think that's another indicator, is if you're not happy where you're at, you're probably not standing in your brand.
Right. And it's about alignment and checking in with that alignment, right? And that's where the ease and flow comes in, when things start coming out of the blue, when you're in that euphoric alignment, right?
Yes.
We've all been there. And sometimes it's like, well, why can't I just sustain this sense of euphoric feeling that I have, that everything is always working out for me, right? Why is everything just flowing so well? It's because you are in that alignment. Yes.
That brand clarity.
It's the brand clarity and the conscious clarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting and bringing it top of mind. And that's why the work is so important.
Well, it sounds like the work that you do and the process that you have is actually a way of supporting your clients to choose, declare, speak into what the brand is. It's an opportunity for them to actually claim it.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. And then everything shifts.
Everything shifts. Okay. Well, I think we are at the end of our time. And I know this has been a fantastic conversation, and there's a lot more juicy stuff in there. So listeners, definitely take the opportunity to connect with Suzanne. Suzanne, what's your website again?
It's brandascension.com.
Perfect. And be sure to go visit us at Heartrepreneurs with Terri Levine on Facebook, and you're going to be able to connect with a lot of other heart-based entrepreneurs there. And we look forward to connecting with you, and we'll see you on our next show.
You've been listening to Heartrepreneur Radio, maximizing your personal and business results by leading with your heart with your host, Terri Levine. This show is produced every week for your enjoyment and education. To make sure you never miss a single show, add us to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe in iTunes. You can also read Terri's latest blog posts at www.heartrepreneur.com/blog or follow Terri on Twitter at MentorTerri and on Facebook.com/Heartrepreneur Terri Levine. Your questions and comments are always welcome and appreciated. Send them to Terri on either Facebook or Twitter. Thank you for listening.